kind of almost don't know how to begin with this. I've been doing, as you know, analysis and looking at data and statistics and so forth. It seems to me that I'm seeing some cherry picking. I'm seeing some misrepresentation of data, and I can't, for the life of me, fathom why. The data is sitting there. Everyone can look at it. We're seeing situations by cherry picking. It means the data is there. It's correct, but it's you only report in certain parts of it and hide other parts. For example, we're seeing that the United Kingdom, England, has a 97% death rate. It means that from the statistics, what we have, if you get coronavirus in England or in the United Kingdom, you will end up a 97% chance of dying and only a 3% chance that you will survive. So taking another look at it, it looks like they're just not reporting recovered cases. So nobody ever recovers. But then again, the numbers add up. Same thing as with the Netherlands. We're seeing with the Netherlands that there's no recovered cases, or recovered cases are just not being reported. And as a result, the statistics, the data is all being skewed tremendously. And I see no reason for doing this. So either England has a death rate that is just insane, that just so many people dying, it's just everybody who gets it dies, or they're just not reporting anybody recovering, and that way they're cutting down the total number of people who are reported to actually catch the disease. Things that I've seen in Canada, back and forth, lots of flip-flopping. For example, that everyone is looking at they're looking at the daily cases, the new daily cases, and they're saying that since that's going down, that it's we're over the hump. And really, with daily cases, what you're looking at is just the change. No, it's still increasing. If you've got more daily cases, even though there may be fewer daily cases than what you had previously, you're still getting more daily cases. You're still increasing. So it's the actual area that, not the value, but the actual area that's under the graph that comes into play. And we're finding cases in Canada where the quarantine is being released at a time when we have the most active cases, the more active cases than at any other previous time. We're thinking there's all this damage to the economy, such as in the United States. We have this releasing of quarantine restrictions, and everyone thinks it's some sort of conspiracy or Chinese conspiracy or something, or it's just the flu. And yet we have these massive death rates, and 200,000 people which are going to contract the disease within the United States. I think it's over 100,000 that have died. No, it's almost 200,000 died. Let's look at the data on that just to be sure, because I'm sort of mumbling. Okay, here we have the American data. This is from Johns Hopkins University. We're seeing this is the new cases, and on the 1st of June, that's today, there were 21,000 new cases. Think of that, 21,000 new cases. On deaths, the number of deaths are now up to, the deaths are 105,000 people have died as a result of this. And of course, now we're in the middle of race riots that have happened. So I don't think there's much going for the economy as a result of lessening off on this, on the quarantining. So confirmed cases are 180,000 confirmed cases that have happened. The number of active cases are at 1.2 million. There's 1.2 million people sick with this disease within the United States, according to the Johns Hopkins data. That's insane. That's just absolutely insane. We're looking at this case here where active cases are what I had said we need to look at. Active cases are still climbing. It's not over the hill. We're not having a reduction in active cases. The deaths are still climbing. There's the deaths, and they're still climbing. That should go into an S curve. Maybe there's a bit of that happening. There's the S-curve of confirmed cases. You can't even see the distinguishing of an S-curve starting to happen within the United States. And, okay, more information. We can see right now that the fatality rate is at 18.67, so the hospitals somehow, I have no idea how, but are keeping up. Usually when that slips over, it's from what we've seen in Italy, when it gets out of control, it starts to hit about 42 to 47%, any around there is an indication that the hospitals are out of control. So that's basically where the United States is with the data that we see. This is real data, and since this is this graph is just the differential, so you need to take a look at the area. So in the beginning, we see this area at the beginning. We take a rectangular area here, we see only half of that are cases. So when it's growing, it's only about half of the daily new cases file that comes in that makes this area of number of people who are sick. But over here, the same length of time, you've got the area of that. You've got almost twice as many people as what was happening at the very beginning. So what you're seeing is the only graph really that should be under the watchful eye of our leaders and so forth is this active cases graph. And there are some leaders who have done that. We've had some extremely good situations. So for example, if we're going to countries to compare countries, we have the United States, which is at the top. Now one of the things we have is France, which is at number 8. We have a strange situation where it's jumped up drastically, it's dropped down, and then sort of continues on. But if we look at the average cases, which we have here, for the active cases, we see a really strange thing. Instead of it going up and then dropping off the other side, it's just going up and remaining steady. So it's steadily under active cases. So there's a consistently 94,000, almost 100,000 people in France are sick, and it's just not dropping off. They're not getting better. Or there's just more and more new cases that are coming in. It's just remaining at this constant amount. To show what that looks like, typical as I've done before, is New Zealand, which is now over it. They only have one active case left in New Zealand. So again, we see that the active cases go up and down, but this is where they talk about things like the long tail and stuff like that. That's not really what a long tail is. A long tail is more like this. And there's our active cases. This is very typical. Almost all countries follow this. And this is exactly what the model predicts. You go up, and then it comes down again. There's not that much of a fat tail at the end. Okay, it's just about died. There's only one active person, one person who still is sick in New Zealand. But that's what it should look like. To see what the confirmed cases should look like, it goes up in an S, comes up and straight through as an S. The same thing as the number of deaths. If we just get rid of confirmed and active, number of deaths are so few. That's why you have these ridges on it. Comes up, and then we're stuck at 22. Yeah, 22 deaths, and I hope that that's the last one that this active case manages to recover. Recovered cases will also go up into this S-curve. Now, the way I'm saying it all adds up is that if any time we take these four numbers, we have confirmed, active, deaths, and recover, and they've all got to fill up because the number of active cases plus number of deaths plus number of confirmed has to add up to this confirmed of 1494. So if you're not reporting the recovered cases, it should show up. So looking at the United Kingdom, we now see that it is still progressing. This thing is not over. You keep getting more and more new cases. So within the United Kingdom, there were 1,500 new cases in one day. The previous day, there were 1,900 new cases. Previous day, there were 1,600 new cases. These add up because they're not getting better for at least 14 days. There are so few recovered. They did have 1,200 people recovered, but 39,000 deaths, almost 40,000 deaths, and the number of people who are sick is close to 250,000 people, 237,000 people. So it's fairly obvious they're not reporting the recovered cases. So if we come down here and we take a look at this, this all has to add up. So we've got 236,000 people who are sick, 38,000 people died, and recovered only 1,190, which means we have confirmed cases of 277, which should be there, but there can't possibly be that few recovered people. It means absolutely everybody who goes to a hospital in the United Kingdom is going to die, very simply. And we look at the death rate. If we now look at recovered cases back here, let's just take a look. When did this start to happen? Okay, there are recovered cases. They're going up. They're being reported somehow. But this is like bizarre. This should be, major news. Major global news for this. We go back up to, up to the United Kingdom. More information. It's down to 96.97 is the death rate. And where are we of new deaths? Confirmed cases, recovered cases are at 0.44%, less than 1%. They now have as recovered cases. Deaths are at, this is closed cases. This is of the closed cases. Yes, of closed cases, less than 1%. Do we see confirmed cases, recovered? No, only this much. Cases by population and so forth. There you can see where the statistic is. But still, that few a number of recovered cases is absolutely insane. That is just unbelievable that number of few people right here of only 1,000 people who have recovered out of total number of cases, more than 250,000 people, and deaths of 39,000 cases. They mustn't be reporting all the cases. I don't know what the Netherlands are like, so perhaps I can look at the Netherlands. I was told about the Netherlands. I was talking to David earlier today, and he was saying the Netherlands are in a similar situation. Netherlands. So we'll look at Netherlands here, just to see what the Netherlands are like. All right, they're having consistent number of people being sick, 170, 182 out of the country, deaths, and again, no recovered cases. The number of recovered cases, only 179 people have recovered out of, looks like 5,000 deaths. Deaths are, grand total, how many deaths do we have? Yes, 5,000 deaths. So if we look at this, now you just pop this out. And this is another case. England has this, where the deaths are above the recovered cases. So let's take a look at just the recovered cases. So we can take a look at that. Now, recovered cases are still being reported by somebody, but there's only 78 recovered cases out of a grand total of almost 6,000 deaths. That's appalling. That can't be right. So I'm saying something's wrong. People are not reporting. What's going on, or the numbers are totally incorrect, or don't go to the medical situation. Maybe they're giving in the hospitals things that are killing people, because this is just not right. Again, people have been saying that since this is down, it's all over, but it's not over until this active cases file here. Just to show, we have active cases in the Netherlands. Come on. This is our active cases file. It's still going up. It hasn't peaked, and it's not going down the other side. Yet, if we look at the daily cases file, it looks like it's over. But this is just a misrepresentation, because this just really kind of indicates the slope of this line. And it's still having the same number of people are still getting sick on a daily basis. And this is almost flat here. The growth rate is about 80%. Between 80% and 100%. And this growth rate is just absolutely steady. This line means relative to the previous day. So they're having the same number of people sick each day as going across. That's what this line means. And that's basically what's meant by what we see from Johns Hopkins University as stated as the growth rate. I use a growth rate as being the percentage increase in the number, which is basically, if we take the logarithm, it's the slope of this top line. And this top line does not have a slope of 0. As you can see, it gets less and less as we go along. But it's sort of getting there, and we see that in the active cases. We're tossing this down to active cases. Come on, get rid of the confirmed. And we open this up. So this is approaching maybe a peak in a month or so, maybe a couple of weeks. I don't know. I'd have to put it in through the model. Looking at other countries, looking at the total number of countries, this is ones that are in most amount of trouble. Brazil, if we want to see what Brazil is like, it's gone up. Now it looks like it's gone down, but maybe it's just not being reported. That's a drastic drop here. Sometimes you see that. They do have a significant number of recovered cases, so at least we know they're reporting it. The deaths are a smaller, if you like, wedge taken out of it. These are the active cases that are still the majority. So it's, you can tell that it's still on a tear. And this is not gone over the peak yet. It's still climbing. Maybe it's starting to go up because I think in Brazil the people themselves are starting to react. But that's pretty vicious. It's still climbing like crazy on this side of the curve. Looking again, that's Brazil. We've seen the United States. Russian Federation, they're trying. We see very few deaths, a lot of active cases compared to a lot of recovery cases, but a very thin wedge, if you like, in the number of deaths. So it looks like the hospitals are onto it, but it's a long way from over. We see 1.0 means it's continuing on a flat level to have the same number of new cases per day coming in. So again, you can see it's definitely the area of this graph that you need to be concerned about. Up here, if we look at active cases, this is for Russia. We're seeing that, oh, this looks interesting because it looks like they kind of got on top of it and then it was let out. We've seen this a lot on people, particularly with France, where they think it's over at this point, because at this point it sometimes seems like, let me get back to it. At this point here, for example, where they're seeing onto it and then it starts to drop, there is the interpretation that it's starting to drop, and people looking at this file think that it's over because they're having fewer and fewer active cases. They let everybody out, and all of a sudden the new cases start coming up again. I think Italy did this. Italy is one of the best cases of looking at what is, even though they're number 6 in the world, they are fighting this desperately, and this is being driven down slowly but surely. And the growth rate is starting to go down from a high. It's gradually going down, but we can see here that the number of recovered cases is now starting to take over. So it's starting to, Italy's starting to see the light of day. The deaths are very, very high because the hospital system has collapsed. Well, not really collapsed. People are fighting like crazy, but they're on their back feet. Number of active cases. We want to squeeze those active cases down to 0. And again, if we now look at the extent of this, we can see this hump line here, which are the active cases, are going down. They're getting on top of it after an unbelievably and horrific situation. So they are now definitely coming down the other side. And it may have been that they may have released people a little bit up top, but they sure got back down on it. And people are staying quarantined, which is the only thing Italy can do. It is by far the best thing to do. Confirmed cases look like that's definitely gone into an S curve, and we want that to be absolutely flat, and we want this active cases to be down to 0. If we look at deaths and recovered, we can see there is what we call this crossover point. And because this is a reflection, that is an indication of immunity starting to build up. So it's not until you get past that crossover that you can start to see that the immunity basically starts building up and the disease is very definitely running out of hosts. So that's basically a look at the data and some misrepresentation of data. I don't know what's happening in England. I don't know what's happening in the Netherlands, and why those recovered people, why the recovered is so low. Either the hospital system has completely collapsed, or they're just using entirely and completely the wrong prognosis within those systems, and no one is recovering, or incredibly few people are recovering, or the data is just not being reported, which means there's a heck of a lot more people who have caught this disease and been sick than what we're seeing. So anyway, that's what we're seeing, and I just thought I'd do something quick just to show that you have to work this stuff out for yourself. The data is there. It's from Johns Hopkins, and we've seen stuff from Worldometer just to mention them, and it matches. Worldometer is mostly from World Health Organization, and there may be differences between the two because there's differences in reporting, but nothing like as significantly different. What I've got is from John Hopkins, and I think that's a better database. And yeah, you can check it out for yourself and take a look at it. But that's what I think. What I think you should be looking at, and I think this is quite concerning. That basically the amount of data and what is actually going on is somehow being hidden behind misinterpretation.